saha nāvavatu, saha bhunaktu, saha viryam karvavahai, tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May we be protected, may we be nourished, may we do brave work, may our work be glorious, may there be no conflict among us, may there be peace, peace, peace. Hello everyone, welcome to today's weekly group meditation. Just can somebody confirm if they can see and hear me well? Thank you, Nathan. Yeah, today I was having some issues with the audio, so you might have observed that I was just joining and leaving and joining and leaving this event stage. Well, let's just start with our weekly meditation first, our group sit, and then we will discuss about samadhi today, which is the 8th stage of yoga, as we have already discussed up to 7 in previous sessions. And you also might have observed that I always say that we should start to transition from guided group meditation to unguided group meditation, silent meditations. So I'll just give some pointers today, and we will see how we can guide ourselves in a silent meditation. Essentially, that is silent meditation. When you guide yourself, instead of you relying on somebody else, you guide yourself. So there are some essential steps in meditation which you can go through each step if you are new to the meditation, but as you become a long-term meditator, as you gain some experience, some of these steps you can actually leave also, because your mind is naturally calm as you get into your meditative place or seat, right? But some of the things that are advised when we do a meditation starts with first intention. So before we begin, we set an intention as to why we are meditating and what are we going to do during our session. So it can be as simple as telling yourself that for the next 20 minutes you are not going to be disturbed. For the next 20 minutes you can set aside all your tasks. You can resume all of the work, all of the family matter, problem, everything can come back after 20 minutes. You have enough of time to pay attention to all of those tasks, but for this 20 minutes you can just make a determination to be in meditative state. Give yourself fully to the practice. That is first part, setting intention. Second part is turning your awareness towards the body. So you sit comfortably with your trunk, neck and head erect in one line, and you scan your body from top to bottom or bottom to top, whatever you find, whichever. But there has to be a rhythm, there has to be a sequence. It's not like you scan your right hand and then you suddenly jump to your left foot, and then you come back to head and then you scan your waist. This should have a sequence, so you can start from top to bottom or bottom to top, whatever you find easy. The motive of this body scan is to find any areas of tension, any areas of stress in your body, and allow them to relax so that your body is fully relaxed. That is the second stage. Third step is where you turn your attention further inward. Now from body you go to breath. You take some deep breath, 3 or 5 is generally what is done, and you take those deep breaths. You allow the breath to fully fill your lungs. You feel the rise in your belly, and then you allow your breath to be natural. If you have attended all the sessions previously, you will see that this is in the sequence of asana, pranayam, and then pratyahar. So after the third step of taking few deep breaths, you go to the pratyahar step, where you drop everything for a minute or two and just let your breathing be natural. Just allow your mind to be silent, calm, before you take up your object of meditation. That is dhāraṇā. So this third step, so first stage is your intention. Second is body scan. Third is taking some deep breaths. Fourth is letting go of breathing and allowing your mind to settle so that you can, in your fifth stage, implant your object of meditation in your calm mind. You prepare the ground and then you put the seed. So that is the fifth stage. That is dhāraṇā. So here you can do whatever meditation technique you are familiar with, whatever meditation technique that you like. You can take a mantra, you can chant mantra, you can come back to your breath, focus on your breath, and you can do visualization. Anything is possible in this step. And this is the longest part. So this is where you have to stay for rest of your meditation session. So this is the fifth stage. Sixth stage is when you transition out of meditation. You should pray that the merits of your meditation is shared across the universe. You fill your heart with loving kindness, and you wish for global welfare. And then finally you open your eyes and take some moment to analyze what are you experiencing after the session. So this is the basic layout of any meditation. So generally for beginners, this is how it goes. As you have gained some experience, after few years you can miss one step or the other. Maybe you don't need to set the intentions anymore because you love meditating after some years. Maybe you don't need to calm your mind down by taking few deep breaths. You are already in the state where you just want to close your eyes and be meditative. So depending on how you feel, you can change this. But for a beginner, this is how the meditation practice should go. So what we will do today is I will simply start the timer, and everybody, all of us on the call will ourselves guide ourselves. I mean, you don't have to speak up loud. Even I am not going to speak up loud this time. So you just close your eyes and start with setting intention, scanning the body, taking few deep breaths, allowing your mind to settle, taking up your meditation object. And at the end, when the bell rings, you just make a wish for global welfare and transition out of the meditation. So that is what we are going to do. The whole session will be silent, and we all will be doing these steps internally. Okay? Let me set a timer for 20 minutes. Before I start, is there any question? Can we do this? So what I want to do is we want to start silent meditations, sitting together and being independent, so that you can do it whenever you want, wherever you want. You learn this process. So I hope everybody has understood. Let's begin. Okay. I see a message. I can't hear anything because I was not speaking anything. Yeah. Just to recap, the steps that we take during a sit, or you can say anatomy of a sit, right? First, setting intention. Second, body scan for relaxing. Third, take a few deep breaths and bring your attention further inwards on your breathing. Fourth, let go of your breath. Allow it to resume its natural rhythm. Just observe. Just let go of any thought that comes in your mind for a minute or two. Let it be as blank as it can be. Fifth, you take up your object of meditation and just start paying attention to that until the end of your timer. That is the longest part of the sit. And sixth, before you open your eyes, fill your heart with loving kindness and make a wish for global welfare. And finally, you open your eyes, gently transition out of the meditation, and for a minute, maybe you observe how you are feeling after the sit. That's basically how generally a sit should go for a beginner. And if you have been practicing for a while, then you can choose what to keep in this sequence and what to skip. So we have been discussing about Patanjali yoga, or 8 limbs of yoga, and it seems I need to turn this off. Done. We have already discussed yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahar, dhāraṇā and dhyan, the first 7 limbs of yoga. We have also seen how do we put all of them in practice in our daily sit also. Just when I described the anatomy of a sit, you can see how asana, where you have to keep your body erect, back, neck and head in one line, that is asana. Taking few deep breaths, right, to move your awareness from your body to your breath, going further inward, is pranayama. Letting go of it and just allowing your mind to calm down is pratyahar. It will also show you what is your biggest attachment or what is your biggest things that you don't want to think about, but it keeps coming. So here, what you are most connected to or disconnected to, it will show that to you, pratyahar. And then you pick up your object of meditation, that is dhāraṇā, and you be with that object of meditation for as long as you can be. That is when dhyana can happen. Dhyana is not something that we can do consciously, but we allow dhyana to happen by ensuring that we do asana, pranayama, pratyahar, dhāraṇā. And then after some time, when dhyana becomes mature, or you have had some experience meditating and you know that in most of your sits you can actually enter the state of dhyana, then slowly samadhi starts to emerge. I was a little bit cautious about talking about samadhi is because it is unlike any experience that we have in our ordinary day-to-day life. And sometimes when people know about something, they kind of hallucinate. Or even if they don't hallucinate, they kind of make up a story in their own head, thinking that they are experiencing so and so. But then, because this is so widely available on the internet, it doesn't make sense to keep this information away, because people can definitely find it. So what I thought is, instead of not discussing this, maybe I should discuss it in the way that all of these points come together and make sense for whoever is going to find things on internet also. So samadhi is very difficult to attain first. But Yoga Sutra says, or Patanjali says in Yoga Sutra, that with practice and renunciation, it can be achieved. We know practice for sure. Anything in this world, if we want to achieve, we have to practice. An archer, if he wants to get a gold medal, he has to practice. Developer, if he wants to get good at programming, has to practice. So practice is a very known part. But renunciation is something that people are always afraid of and is not really understood well. A lot of time people think renunciation means leaving off everything physically and going off into the woods or in the mountains. But renunciation is mentally creating a space between what is not you and what you are. Yesterday, I posted an answer in Mindful Discussion, and in that I discussed about how we identify with things, how rich identify with wealth, how intellectual identifies with knowledge. It is purely because of emotional intimacy. So the more we think about something, it creates sanskar or patterns in our mind. And more we think it, those patterns become deeper and deeper. And that's where identification begins. So renunciation, or even pratyahar for that matter, is mentally detaching ourselves from that object. When we realize that, okay, this object has such a deep-rooted pattern in our mind that even if I want to clear my mind, this keeps coming up. That is our sign to understand, okay, this is what I am, if not today, probably into tomorrow, I am going to identify with. And that's when you should start practicing vairagya or renunciation. Keep a little distance. So if you are watching television for 3 hours and TV shows keep coming in your meditation when you are at the stage of pratyahara, maybe reduce it. 2 hours is fine. So that way you create a little distance. That is vairagya. So practice is definitely important for achieving anything in this world. And vairagya, that is important in the sense that depending on what kind of vairagya we inculcate in our life, there will be different kind of samadhi that will be attained. So to understand this, when even in worldly matters, when we want to focus on something, we have to remove distractions. We have to, and removing distraction, we kind of cut off ourselves with all the distracting things, and so that we can conserve our energy and focus on what we want to achieve. That is also a kind of vairagya. But that is not what can lead to samadhi. Vairagya or renunciation that leads to samadhi initially is called Apara vairagya. So Apara vairagya, this Apara is not the English word U-P-P-E-R, but Apara is obviously Hindi word or Sanskrit word like vairagya. And that basically means renouncing everything that can be seen or has been heard of. So when I say can be seen and has been heard of, that means basically everything in experience. Even some things that cannot be seen, but we can hear about it, somebody talking about it, maybe electron, proton, air, right? Emotions, those can't be seen. But because we can talk about it, people hear about it all the time. That also should be renounced. That is Apara vairagya. Even things that are written in scriptures, that if you do meditation for so and so long, you will achieve this state or that state, or this will be your experience. Those are things that we can hear. Those are things that are being talked about. So even those things, we have to leave our clinging to any of the things that can be seen or has been or can be heard of. That is Apara vairagya. That leads to a kind of samadhi which is called sampragyat samadhi. Sampragyat samadhi. So sampragyat samadhi means a state where you have full understanding of what is happening during that stage. Samadhi is obviously a state of mind. But in this particular state, you can actually realize what is happening. And you can, even when you come out of samadhi, you can talk about it, that you experience so and so things. This sampragyat samadhi or sabija samadhi, this is also called sabija samadhi, because in this kind of samadhi, you always enter with a bij. Bij means seed or an object. You take an object of meditation and then you enter into this sampragyat samadhi or sabija samadhi. That's why it is called sabija. This also has further stages inside of it. So sampragyat samadhi, the initial part of sampragyat samadhi will be vitarka anugat samadhi. There will be a lot of jargons here, Sanskrit words, a lot of Sanskrit words, because I don't know what are the correct English translations of these words. So I will be loosely translating, but even with that loose translation, there will be a lot of different Sanskrit terminologies, because there are so many different stages of samadhi. Samadhi, we think samadhi is just like one state, right? It's not. So first step in sampragyat samadhi, when somebody enters into sampragyat samadhi. First of all, what is sampragyat samadhi? We have to understand. Sampragyat samadhi is the state where whatever is your object of meditation, it starts to open up. When I say it starts to open up, it means you will start gaining insights about that object which you previously didn't know. Not that you knew and somehow your mind is now able to recollect it, or you knew XYZ information and combining this XYZ information, your brain is able to produce, some combination information. It's not that. It is entirely new information about that object that was not known to you, but is now known to you. That is what happens in sampragyat samadhi. That is what we also say. You start to see things. When you see things, you know. So you can also say this is insight, but there are more stages to this. So insight is also not entirely defining word here. So I will continue to use Sanskrit jargons. So this is the overall sampragyat samadhi. But even in sampragyat samadhi, as we said, the first is vitarka samadhi. Vitarka samadhi is the stage where you start to get information about the object which are sensible, which are logical, So you gain information or understanding about your object that you can actually go out and share to the world, and people will have no clue how did you even know that. It's not for saying that you should do this and you should amaze people. That is never the goal of any sadhana, to amaze people or to show off what you have achieved. But generally this is what happens. If somebody goes into vitarka samadhi of sampragyat samadhi and then comes out and tells something about object, people often don't understand how did he even get that information. People can see other people and tell things about them. People can see things and tell where that thing probably had been 5 hours earlier, or what happened before, 2 years, 5 years, whatever. I mean, this is the stage where you get understanding that is understandable to common man also, if you tell them. But not common man can get that information. That is vitarka samadhi, where reasonable information is gained. The second stage is called vichara samadhi. Vichara samadhi is where your object breaks down further. So suppose you start meditating on a piece of music, and in vitarka samadhi, the first part of sampragyat samadhi, you gain information about that piece of music. Okay, probably who played this piece of music for the very first time, those kind of information you probably might not know earlier. In vichara the second part of sampragyat samadhi, you will start to gain information about the subtle parts of the music, like every single note, every single sound frequency, how one note moves into the another note. This kind of information you gain is very difficult to tell other people, because this doesn't fully lie in the realm of reasoning. This will be informations in pieces. They will be information as a whole because they are associated with a very subtle part of it, of the object. But that subtle part itself is not in experience of ordinary people. So when you are trying to tell information about that part of it, most people won't ever get it. That is vichara, the second part of sampragyat samadhi. In between these two, there is also a stage where you transition. So that transition stage is called nirvitark sampragyat samadhi. So because all of these are inside sampragyat samadhi, there will be sampragyat samadhi in the end of it. So vitarka anugat sampragyat samadhi has further two parts. Savitark sampragyat samadhi, which I already explained, where you get information about things that you can actually share to the world, and people will be benefited, of course, but they will have no clue how did you get that information. And probably that is how ancient rishis in India told about the distance between earth and moon, the distance between earth and sun, which today we find is pretty accurate. And we don't know how did they know that, right? And there are so many other things which are written in scriptures that are true, but we don't know how could they do that at that time. That is savitark sampragyat samadhi. And inside vitarka anugat, there is another one which is a transitory phase, is nirvitark sampragyat samadhi. Understanding this is further difficult is because there are three things that we always experience. One is the object that lies in the world. Another is the word that is associated with that object. And the third is the meaning that we understand with that word. Generally, when we talk, our language is such that we only say the word and everybody else connects the meaning and the object. So when I say apple, every one of you will have an idea of what is that apple I am talking about, right? But in my mind, there can be maybe a green apple which is exceptionally small in size. Until I say all of this description, your idea of apple is completely different from what I envisioned in the first place. So that is the difference between word and real object. And the meaning, because that meaning which came up when you heard the word apple is completely different in each one of our minds. Somebody probably imagined a green apple, somebody might have imagined a red apple, somebody probably imagined a bunch of apple in the tree or in the basket. So it can be completely different. So in the transitory stage of vitarka anugat samadhi, the word and the object vanishes, only the meaning remains. And when only the meaning remains, this is a stage where whatever you are experiencing, you cannot share. Not that you can share and people will not understand. You cannot even share because you don't have words for that. So generally the experience will be as such that you know something, but you can't tell people. And tomorrow, if modern science progresses and it discovers something and people suddenly start talking about it, it will be not a surprise for you what has been discovered. But at the same time, you will know that the words which are being used to explain that concept are not accurate. So it is that level of understanding. That is nirvitark sampragyat samadhi. Similarly, from when you progress from vichara anugat samadhi, I should actually post a image here so that at least you know what all words I am shuffling through. So here I post a image in the chat. This image is not accurate in terms of how we progress. Going further in the 9th and 10th stages, you will see that how this image is not accurate, and I'll tell what happens before and what happens after. But at least this gives you an idea of the first stage of samadhi, which is sampragyat samadhi, has further divisions. And inside that, we already talked about, initially you enter with an object and you enter into sampragyat samadhi. That is with the object. And then from sampragyat samadhi, it starts with savitarka samadhi, where you get reasonable information. And then the transitory thing happens, which is nirvitark. nirvitarka samadhi. So you go from vitarka anugat to vichara anugat. The anugat word is not written in this. So you go from vitarka to vichara. And then savichar happens, where you are actually gaining information about the subtlest part of that object. And the subtlest part, the information that you are getting about the subtlest part of the object, that also is shareable. But the problem is, people do not have experience of the subtle nature of the object, so they don't understand. But you can share for sure. That's where people consider you mystic. You start sounding like mystic. You talk things people do not understand, but it makes proper sense to you. And maybe after 5-6 days, when they see that the things are happening exactly as you said, people start considering you as, mystical being who knows things and all that stuff, right? That is savichar samadhi. And when you progress further, then nirvichar samadhi happens. Nirvichar samadhi. Just like nirvitarka samadhi, this also has the same quality. The quality is that here you only get information in terms of meaning, not in terms of word, not in terms of objects. So this is also very difficult to share. You can't share this understanding with anybody. The difference is between nirvitark and nirvichar is that in nirvitark you are getting information at a meaning level of a gross object, and in nirvichar you are getting information at a meaning level of a subtle object. So earlier you got probably some information about music, now you are getting some information about just the sound, maybe sound waves, frequencies. Then comes the third stage of sampragyat samadhi, which is called ananda anugat. At this point, even the subtle parts of the object of meditation starts to dismantle, and when they dismantle, it becomes basically nothing. So your gross object, whatever is your object of meditation, may be a form. Initially you identify the form with name and form, like it is the image of Krishna or something. In the second stage of nirvichar, you start identifying the form as Krishna or something. You just identify it as a conglomeration of colors and lines and all that, right? Or shapes, three-dimensional shapes and all. And then further down in the third stage, which is ananda anugat, even that starts to dismantle and disappear, and you start feeling bliss. So you have the experience of I am happy, I am blissful. That is ananda anugat samadhi, experience of pleasure. A lot of people think that this is what is the final stage, done. But there is a long way to go. If you keep practicing further, this I am happy, from this sentence of I am happy or the experience of I am blissful, the word happy or blissful drops. And you just start experiencing I am. I am. The happiness, pain, everything becomes alike. But the experience of I am becomes prominent. That is called asmita anugat sampragyat samadhi, the fourth stage of sampragyat, asmita anugat sampragyat samadhi. This is the stages of sampragyat samadhi, the first level of samadhi, where you start with a bij or the seed or an object, and slowly that object becomes subtler, then disappears, and then it points to yourself. If you remember, initially we talked about the difference between dhāraṇā, dhyan and samadhi. The difference between dhāraṇā, dhyan and samadhi was, in dhāraṇā you have the meditator, the object of meditation, and the act of meditation. In dhyan, the act of meditation disappears. Then you have the meditator and the object of meditation, right? And in samadhi, as you have seen already, as we progress from savitark to nirvitark to savichar to nirvichar to ananda anugat, anand, right? By that time, the object also disappears. Only you remain, right? That is samadhi. That is how it progresses. But after this experience, something different happens. When you start experiencing I am, after further practice into this, a stage comes where you realize that this I am is also a thought. And then you see that you are different from chitta. The word is chitta. Chitta means the mental plane. All thoughts, all experiences arise in this chitta, the mental plane. And you start to see that you are different from chitta. When you say I am, this I belongs to this I am, the expression belongs to chitta, and you realize that you are separate from it. This stage is called viveka khyati. And when you realize that, okay, I am not even the experience of I am, then you develop a second level of renunciation or vairagya, which is called vairagya, which is initially what we had developed when we were entering into sampragyat samadhi is Apara vairagya, and this is vairagya. Vairagya means a state of renunciation where you renounce all possible modifications of three modes of nature. The three modes of nature are sattva, rajas and tamas. If you are not sure about that, sattva is generally signified by positive things. Rajas is signified by passion and activity, and tamas is signified by laziness, sleepiness, lethargy and all that. So all of the existence is made up of varying combinations of these three modes of nature. Even this experience of I am is a very sattvic experience, but still is a formation of these modes of nature, sattva. And when you realize that, okay, this is different from my own existence, and you start, pulling your attention away from chitta to the purusha. This is called purusha, the second part, or you can say the self, the real self with capital S. This is where Apara vairagya dawns upon you. Apara vairagya means now you are free from all bondages. Now Maya, or three modes of nature, sattva, rajas and tamas, are basically Maya in action. And when you go beyond that, that's when you are free from Maya. And there starts the next level of samadhi, which is called asampragyat samadhi or nirbija samadhi. This is a state where you do not need any object for meditation. And the word asampragyat means whatever you are going to experience in this stage is not gonna sound sensible even to yourself. So you will experience things, but you will always feel as if this doesn't make sense, but this is what I experience. Initially a lot of things will not make sense to you, even in sampragyat samadhi, but if you have a real teacher, then he can make sense of those experiences for you. But if you are in asampragyat samadhi stage, even the teacher cannot make sense of those experiences for you. That is how is the nature of asampragyat samadhi. And when you dwell in the state of asampragyat samadhi for longer, then you reach the final stage, which is called kaivalya, which is the final goal of yoga, not samadhi. Samadhi is the final limb of yoga, but samadhi is meant to take you to kaivalya. And this final stage, kaivalya, is when you become one with your own identity. And your identity, what we say all the time, what is written in all the scriptures, come true to you by experience. You experience what is soul. You experience that soul is not different from divine. You experience what is God. You experience how it is everywhere. You experience how divine is you alone. And the word kaivalya literally means onlyness. That is the experience, onlyness. If you if you pay attention, the word is onlyness, not I-ness. I-ness is a very lower stage. It happens at asmita anugat sampragyat samadhi. Then you go to vivek khyati, then you go to dharma meg, and then you go to asampragyat, and then you go to kaivalya. So the feeling of I as one is a very, lower stage compared to the feeling of one, not even one. The onlyness is the correct word, onlyness. You don't know what that only thing is. You don't even know that if that only thing is you, if that only thing is something else, but that is the only thing. It's strange to talk about that, but that is how we progress in the path of samadhi. I think this was very long than expected. The only difference in this chart, if you see, it says that sabij samadhi has two variations, which is not true. Sabij samadhi is asampragyat. Sabij samadhi is sampragyat samadhi. So, and then sampragyat samadhi directly has 4 levels. And here it says nirvitarka and nirvichara is part of asampragyat samadhi, which is also not true. Asampragyat samadhi and nirbija samadhi is same. So it should actually sit on the second level. First level is samadhi, second level is sabij and nirbij. So sabij is same as sampragyat, nirbij is same as asampragyat. And sampragyat further classifies into vitarka, savichar, ananda and asmita. Nirvitarka and nirvichar are sub-categories of savitarka. So sampragyat actually divides into vitarka, vichar, anand, asmita, and vitarka further divides into 2, savitarka and nirvitarka. Vichar further divides into 2, savichar and nirvichar. And then when you go to asmita, then you go to vivek khyati and dharma meg samadhi. Then you go to nirbij or asampragyat, and finally to kaivalya. That is samadhi. It's a difficult topic to grasp because a lot of these things are not in our experience. But Patanjali decided to make this categorization and sequencing so that he knew that people will have very different experiences when they get past the stage of meditation. They will have wildly different experiences depending on what object they choose to meditate upon. So instead of saying that you will start seeing symbols, you will start hearing sounds like we say in different traditions, those become very specific to what kind of object you take for meditation. If you have taken a visual object for meditation, then obviously your samadhi will show you visions. It will show you shapes, colors and everything. If you have taken a sound for your meditation, then obviously your samadhi, stages of samadhi of vichar, nirvichar, savitarka, all these stages will start showing you, start making you hear sounds, because that is how you go deep into sound. Sound can only be experienced through sound. So instead of saying those things, Patanjali just categorized them that, okay, this is going to happen, and depending on your meditation object, it will give you different experiences. But you have to judge whether you are in savitarka samadhi, nirvitarka samadhi by understanding, is it reasonable? Can you speak it out? Can people understand this? Can you even make sense out of your experience, right? These kind of questions. And if you ask these kind of questions, everybody will fall in one or the other category, which is listed here. That is about samadhi. Not sure. Hopefully, in the next session, maybe we will talk a little bit about kaivalya. What is the state of kaivalya? So not really a thing that can be discussed, but we'll see, because there is a whole chapter in Yoga Sutra where Patanjali does discuss about kaivalya, a whole chapter about kaivalya pad. So we'll see if we can do that, if it even makes sense to speak out, those things. But if not, we will go into different topic. We have already seen Ashtanga Yoga, Patanjali Yoga, and we have seen Bhakti Yoga, the yoga of devotion. We can see Karma Yoga, the yoga of action, and Jnana Yoga, the yoga by knowledge. Those two topics are also left if we think in terms of what has been covered and what is left in Introduction to Yoga. So, thank you everyone for joining, and hope to see you and more people in the next session. Thank you very much. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.